If you've ever been the only one not picked in a PE class, you'll understand how Alicia Jameson felt that morning. Just another day at Willard South High School in suburban Atlanta, where there are more state flags than trees and more white teachers named Karen than Rosa Parks books in the library. Alicia stepped off bus 14, gripping her backpack strap as if it contained both resilience and a birth certificate previously accused of being fake. Her hair was neatly braided, her uniform perfectly pressed, and her gaze unwavering, hoping not to meet anyone's eyes. This wasn't her first school transfer, and it wouldn't be her last. But this time, her mother told her, "Just stay quiet, get good grades, and don't draw attention." Easier said than done, especially when your skin color is enough to make some people think you're probably smuggling math textbooks. The halls of Willard South echoed with laughter, the squeak of Nike soles on tile, and bro hugs no one could tell were affectionate or threatening. Alicia moved through that space like a ghost. No one knew who she was, and if they did, they likely wouldn't care the right way. But one thing Alicia knew for sure. In schools like this, there's always one guy who thinks he's king. And at Willard South, that king wore a backwards cap, scoffed every time someone said the word diversity, and went by the name Logan Beckett. Logan Beckett wasn't exactly what you'd call bookish, unless the book had pickup trucks, Confederate flags, and America First on the cover. He was the captain of the baseball team and heir apparent to the title of most annoying white student in the district. Logan believed in three things. He was always right. Anyone unlike him was wrong. And every student of color walking through Willard South's halls should have their background double-checked. That morning, when Logan saw Alicia open her locker, the new black girl, silent, not rushing to greet the self-appointed king of the school, he frowned. Not because she did anything wrong, but because she did nothing. No apology for existing, no avoiding his gaze, no adherence to the unspoken rules of Willard South, the rules Logan believed he had written. He said it loud enough for the varsity jacket crew to hear. "Yo, who let 15-year-old Olivia Pope wander into my school?" The group laughed, not because it was funny, but because the rules demanded it. Laugh or risk exile. Laugh to avoid confronting anything real. Alicia didn't laugh. She closed her locker, turned slowly, looked at Logan for exactly 2 seconds, then walked away. No words, no scowl, just silence. And for people like Logan, that silence is the loudest provocation. Logan wasn't used to being ignored, especially by a black girl, probably from some place with a name like Jacksonville or Baltimore, places where, according to him, people don't respect anything. In Logan's mind, Alicia's refusal to bow, to apologize for her presence, or to chuckle at his mockery, was a big problem. So he decided to teach her a lesson. Not with fists. Logan was too clever and too cowardly for that, but with something sneakier, throwing her into the gears of a system he believed he controlled. Monday morning, Alicia was called to the principal's office. The reason? An anonymous report claiming she had displayed threatening behavior toward another student. Specifically, Logan. More specifically, a prolonged stare lasting 2 seconds described in the report as a menacing expression, potentially leading to violent conduct. If you think absurd is too strong a word to describe this, well, hello, and welcome to America. The principal, a white man with slicked back hair and a collection of eagle-themed ties, didn't ask many questions. He simply looked at Alicia with the kind of gaze shaped by decades of maintaining order in schools, which really meant keeping the white kids comfortable. "Alicia," he said, "we value mutual respect here. Behaviors that make your peers uncomfortable must be corrected immediately. Alicia said nothing. She looked him in the eye the same way she had looked at Logan, direct, unapologetic, unafraid. But this time, it was the principal who looked away first. That day in class, whispers filled the room. Logan sat in the back, arms crossed, smug, like he'd just won a chess match the other player didn't even know they were in. Alicia sat at the second desk, composed, calm, and silent. But that silence wasn't surrender. It was something far more unsettling for people like Logan, a quiet anticipation. And what Logan didn't know was this. The game he thought he controlled had just started to turn. A few days later, something unusual began to happen. Logan, as usual, swaggered into class with that half-smile, the kind only boys who've never had to face consequences can maintain for so long. But today, no one was looking at him. Every eye, without cue or coordination, turned toward Alicia, because that day, Alicia stood up to speak during history class, and instead of stumbling like the new black girl, she spoke in a calm, articulate voice about her great-grandmother, one of the first black women to be accepted into a medical school in Alabama in 1965. She shared how her great-grandmother had been rejected 3 times, lost her scholarship for being culturally unfit, and worked 15-hour days at a laundromat to pay her tuition. No one laughed. Even the teacher, the one who always seemed too busy to intervene when Logan mocked other students, adjusted his posture, suddenly uneasy for reasons he couldn't explain. And Logan? He squirmed in his seat, not out of guilt, but out of confusion. He wasn't used to his usual target being heard, listened to, and respected, like she was the teacher. After class, a group of students approached Alicia. A blonde girl with a purple bow who once laughed when Logan called Alicia a bootleg Michelle Obama, now cautiously said, "That story about her grandmother, it was really powerful." Alicia smiled, gently, graciously, but not submissively. Logan stood nearby, gripping the strap of his backpack tightly. He didn't understand what was happening. That story wasn't even that special, was it? Just some old woman, some dusty past, some steady voice. But that was the point. For the first time in his life, Logan wasn't the center of the room, and he began to feel what Alicia had always felt, invisible. On Monday morning, the school bulletin board had a surprise update. In the Student Voices section, a small space usually ignored in favor of horoscopes, there was a new article. No author name. The title? Just 4 words. "The Freedom on My Hair." The piece began in a calm but resolute tone, describing the feelings of a young black girl whose natural curls had become a topic of discussion in every class, every hallway, and sadly, even the dean's office. I don't remember much of what I learned my first week at school, but I remember the vice principal's eyes when I walked in with my natural afro. I remember her asking me gently if I'd consider a neater hairstyle to better match the dress code. I went home and cried. Not because I hated my hair, but because I realized I was being taught that to be accepted, I had to give up parts of myself. The article ended with a quote from her great-grandmother, a woman who had broken through a discriminatory system to become a doctor. "If you fold your hair to fit the box they give you, one day they'll ask you to fold your dreams too." No one said it out loud, but everyone knew it was Alicia. That day in English class, the teacher, a middle-aged white man who had long ignored complaints about Logan, spent the first 10 minutes reading the article out loud to the entire class. No one dared to laugh. Not even a chair creaked. Logan sat in the middle of the classroom, eyes fixed on his desk, both hands clenched into fists. For 2 years, he had mocked and belittled others, and never once had a response been honored and spread like this one. He used to call Alicia the backdrop for a joke, and now he was the backdrop for a voice the entire school had begun to listen to. Logan Matthews, the faculty's golden boy, captain of the football team, and the unofficial mouthpiece of racially tinged jokes, did something no one expected. He knocked on Alicia's door during recess. No laughter, no attitude, no iPhone raised to capture a viral moment. He just stood there, awkward, nervously tugging at the hem of his uniform shirt, as if peeling away the layers of false confidence he had worn for years. Alicia looked up from her book. Her gaze wasn't cold, but it wasn't indulgent either. "I read the article," Logan began, awkwardly. "I didn't know, or actually, I did. I just didn't want to understand. I'm sorry." "Really?" Alicia didn't respond immediately. She closed her book slowly, then replied, not with anger, but with a level of maturity that made one forget she was only 16. "I don't need you to apologize for me. I will still walk with my hair, my dreams, and my name. But I want you to understand that an apology can't fix a system designed to protect you and silence me." The air in the small room shifted, not heavy, but deeper than before. "You really want to do something?" Alicia continued. "Then use your privilege to do the things I was laughed at for even dreaming. Stand up when the next person is treated like I was. Challenge the invisible rules you've always benefited from." "That's the only apology I'll accept." Logan nodded. No rebuttal. No follow-up. And maybe, for the first time in his life, he listened all the way to the end. The next day, Alicia walked into school without a word. She wore a black, worn-out hoodie. No logo. No brand. Just one sentence printed boldly across her chest. "This hair is not a threat." She walked through the hallway as usual, head held high, eyes calm. But the pushback came from the places you'd least expect. A few teachers widened their eyes, some students scoffed, and others strangely looked down, perhaps realizing they had once been part of the silence. And then came the administration. Principal Rhodes, known for her pastel blazers and forgettable speeches at PTA meetings, called Alicia to her office. Alicia, do you realize that wearing a shirt like that could be seen as provocative? School is a neutral space. We shouldn't bring politics into the classroom." Alicia looked at her. This time no smirk, no defiance, just a quiet question, soft as breath. "Ma'am, is my hair political?" No one answered. Mrs. Rhodes pressed her lips together, clearly debating whether to say something that could ruin her reputation or keep silent and preserve her position. "This hoodie doesn't break the dress code," Alicia continued. "There's no profanity, no offensive symbols. If someone feels threatened by a few strands of hair and a sentence, then maybe the problem isn't me." Mrs. Rhodes sighed, and after a few seconds of hesitation, all she could say was, "Go back to class, Alicia." And so she did. No suspension. No demand to remove the hoodie. No name written into any violation log. But most importantly, she was seen. Rumors spread faster than the school's Wi-Fi. By lunchtime, a photo of Alicia in the black hoodie with the line, "This hair is not a threat," had already appeared on the Instagram page of a junior named Jalen, who usually only posted photos of sneakers and fried chicken. The caption under the photo read just one word. This girl just taught the entire school a lesson without saying a word. 3 hours later, a bespectacled student in chemistry class wore the exact same hoodie. Another printed the slogan on a sticker and slapped it onto the back of their laptop. By the end of the week, the hoodie had been worn by more than 50 students, each carrying a different story, but sharing the same suppressed anger. And then, that Monday, something unexpected happened. During recess, in the middle of the school courtyard, Alicia saw a group of students standing around the fountain. They weren't shouting. They weren't causing a scene. They simply held handmade cardboard signs that read, "My hair is not a problem. I stand with Alicia. Zero tolerance for racial bias." And in the middle of that crowd stood Claire, the white, blonde-haired girl who once giggled when Alicia was reprimanded by a teacher about her hair. Today, Claire stood there, holding a sign, eyes wet. "I'm sorry for staying silent." Alicia didn't cry. She didn't smile. She simply nodded, as if understanding that an avalanche doesn't start with a roar, but with a very subtle tremor. And in that moment, the name Alicia Thompson no longer rang out like a high school student's name, but like a living symbol of something much greater. No one told them to protest. No one organized a movement. It all began with one girl, one sentence, and a head of natural hair that had never truly been accepted. That day at Roosevelt High School, there was no bell to signal the end of recess. No crackling announcements. No sound of students sneaking candy from jacket pockets. Just thick, taut silence stretched like violin strings, and a long table where the members of the Board of Education sat upright, like they were attending a NASA oath ceremony. Alicia sat alone at the table opposite them. No lawyer, no parents. Just her familiar hoodie and her natural curls, worn loose like a small flag flying through a storm of prejudice. One board member, Mr. Carter, whose eyes always looked like he was checking a restaurant bill, spoke first, his voice gruff. "Miss Alicia, do you realize how much disruption your actions have caused in this school?" Alicia remained silent. No nod, no shake of the head. Another member jumped in, her voice syrup-smooth but sharp, like broken glass. "No one's against you expressing yourself. But you must understand, there are more appropriate ways. For example, a handwritten letter. Then, the climax." A woman stood from the parents' section in the back. Salt and pepper hair, glasses, a blazer. She looked like a retired teacher, but her gaze was that of a hawk spotting its prey. "My name is Dr. Regina Ellison, and I'm the mother of 2 daughters with hair just like Alicia's. I've sat before people like you, hearing them talk about more appropriate ways. And I say this, if silence were appropriate, racism wouldn't have survived until 2025. The room went dead silent, tense, like a brake cable pulled to the max. Alicia turned slightly, her eyes lit with something quiet, yet unshakably strong. Then another student stood up, then a teacher, then another parent. No one shouted. No one slammed a desk. Just story after story, experience after experience, each invisible scar brought into the light. And of them all, only one person didn't speak. Alicia. Because sometimes power doesn't lie in saying more, but in making others speak for you. 3 weeks after that dramatic hearing, something surprising happened in the city. It wasn't unseasonal snow. It wasn't the cheerleading competition getting canceled because all the contestants suddenly got too good at academics. It was a short, one-page announcement from the City Department of Education. Students have the right to maintain hairstyles that align with their cultural heritage and personal identity. Any act of coercion to alter a student's appearance based on subjective criteria will be subject to serious investigation. In the bottom right corner, there was a signature, not from the principal, but from the head of the city council. And right beneath the announcement, a photo was circulating across social media. Alicia standing in front of City Hall, head held high, her curly hair rising like the boldest argument ever made without a single word. But the story doesn't end there. 1 week later, Roosevelt High School hosted a seminar titled Understanding and Respecting Diversity in Education. Standing on the stage that day was Alicia. Yes, the same girl who, just 3 weeks earlier, had been asked to polish herself to fit the academic environment. She didn't give a long speech. She didn't cite statistics. She just smiled and said, "When I was asked to fix my hair to look like a normal student, I just wanted to ask, what is normal? And who gets to decide that for us?" The auditorium erupted, not because Alicia said something no one had ever heard before, but because she said what everyone had thought, yet never dared to say aloud. And then, one day on campus, another group of students of all races, genders, and styles began showing up wearing their natural hair. Some had wild, curly hair. Some wore dreadlocks. Some had intricately braided cornrows. One white student appeared with pink-dyed hair, holding a sign that read, "If freedom were a hairstyle, then sorry, I'm letting it fly." Alicia walked past them and nodded gently. No words were needed, because sometimes change doesn't come from a policy. It comes from a small girl who was once told to tie her hair back, but instead chose to stand tall. This story isn't just about hair. It's about identity, about the right to exist without asking for permission, and about how, when you're brave enough not to compromise, the world will have no choice but to adjust to you.